Hello everybody and welcome back to the Minecraft Pixelmon Let's Play series. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I have all the footage recorded and I will be voicing over it, so that's why I'll be talking in past tense. Anyways, I hope you enjoy. I started off today trying to defeat some Nidorino and Nidorina to get moonstone shards to make a moonstone shovel, but it did not turn out very well because after a few hours I only ended up with one moonstone shard and I needed 9. While I was doing this, however, I ended up having a Victini spawn in the savannah here, but I looked around for a long time and was not able to find it. I don't think the fact that he's super small and all this grass is around helped me very much. While I was looking, however, we ended up finding a dungeon on the side of this mountain here, which actually had a clear bell in it, which is good because that's how you spawn the legendary Ho-Oh. When you place that bell down every day at dawn, there is a 1% chance that the bell will start ringing, and then at dusk, Ho-Oh will actually spawn. And while we were running around some more for Nidorino and Nidorinas, we actually had another Victini spawn on us, and we were able to find this one and fight it. Although, unfortunately, we did not get very lucky and we couldn't catch him. While we were running around, we ended up finding an epic boss Nidoran and a legendary boss Nidoran, both of which we were able to take down with our Hone Edge because they could only use poison and normal attacks, both of which he is immune to. Eventually we gave up on the Moonstone Shard quest and we came back to find a hidden grotto which had an XP all in it. So now all of our Pokemon can share XP. And now it was time to go mining, so we found a cave and just started digging up all the ores we could find. In this cave we ended up finding a pretty big ravine, which we did end up exploring after we finished exploring the caves up here, just to make sure we didn't miss any iron or anything. Here we found some sapphires, as well as some bauxite, which you can smelt into aluminum, which is used to craft your PCs and healers and other sorts of machinery for Pixelmon. Once we finished exploring that cave, it was time to start heading down to the bottom of the ravine and see what goodies we could find. So this section was pretty cool because there were actually a few different ravines that cut through and made this whole system of ravines. And here we also pick up some amethyst that we found. And running through some of the other side caves here, we ended up finding another dungeon. There wasn't anything too great here, no tidal bells or even another clear bell, although we did end up getting a plate that we need to summon Arceus later on. Heading back to the main ravine, I heard some lava over here, so I wanted to keep digging. And when we found it, we found these Firestone Shard ores, which you can mine for Firestone Shards to craft into, of course, Firestones, which are used to evolve certain Pokemon. And here we also found some Silicon. Back on the surface here, we started heading into a new cave. And while we were mining here, we actually had a Zacian spawn in the forest up above. So we ran out pretty quick to go and find him, which didn't take too long because he was pretty big, even for a Zacian. So our Pokemon were already kind of weak here, but we wanted to see if we could weaken it as much as possible. So we just threw our Pokemon out pretty much and used whatever hits we could try to get. Tried to get the burn on Fletchinder, but he didn't last too long. Tried to see if our Honedge was immune to his attacks, and he was not. So we actually decided to run here because I remember seeing a Pokemon Center up on the surface not too far from here. But as I start heading that direction, I realize it may be a little too far, so my best bet here was to try and throw a Pokemon at it and just use a quick ball. And actually, surprisingly, we managed to catch it with this quick ball, which I did not expect to happen at all, but we got pretty lucky here. After that, we headed into a new cave here, which we actually found right by the Zacian. And after exploring a little further down, we ended up finding a mine shaft, which will be good for us in the future because in mine shafts the legendary Diancie can spawn. We found some minecart chests in the mine shaft and actually ended up with a diamond from them. A little further down and we actually found a pretty big ravine with a lot of lava at the bottom. And exploring some of the caves down here, we found our first diamonds. And we got pretty lucky because this was actually an 8 stack. Something I forgot to mention last episode is that Shuckles can actually spawn underground, so we end up killing him and actually got 2 shulker shells, which is good because we were about out of inventory space. Exploring in another cave here, we came across a fossil ore inside of this gravel pit. So fossil ores will spawn underground in gravel pits, or you can find them at the bottom of the ocean, since there's also gravel down there. And we didn't have a fortune pick at the time, but if you do use fortune on it, you can get multiple different fossils. And the fossils, when put in fossil cleaners, will turn into Pokemon that you can use. And eventually we found our way back up to the surface, where we were going to set up and get ready to start making our base. Starting off our base here, we wanted to make a circle for our main room, which is going to be our storage and basic utility room. And the block I had placed originally was the center between 2 chunks, or as close to the center as you can get with 1 block, which will be important later for our apricorn farm. And while I'm building this here, I will explain why we actually changed locations. So originally we were planning on building in the taiga, but that taiga cannot have any legendary spawn in it, because it is not Taiga M, and the only legendary that can spawn in Taiga M is actually Yveltal. So the only legendary chances we had there were from the beach and the ocean, whereas here we have beach, ocean, forest, plains, as well as a little bit of sunflower plains. And while we were building here, I was going to get some of our new iron smelting up so we have it to use later on. And after we had the circle made, it was time to start digging out some of this hill here so we can actually put our base inside of this area. All done. The design I wanted to do actually required some andesite for the floor, so I just went into a cave nearby here and started mining out some andesite. Now that we had our andesite, it was time to start outlining this floor. And with this, we have the entire circle outline of our floor complete. We start making a line through the middle here with a little gap in the middle for us to put an elevator so we can get up to our second floor here easily. And with the floor basically divided into 2 halves, we start filling the bottom half with birch planks. And for any of you who have played Pokemon before, I think you know what design I'm going for here. We go with spruce wood for the top half of our Pokeball, just to keep it in the same kind of colors of the Pokeball, but in a more neutral tone. And here we make our elevator blocks, which is just 8 iron around a redstone. And when you press space when you're standing on top of it, it'll take you up to the one above it. And if you hold shift, you'll go to the one below it. On the back here, we start making our first wall. We're just making it out of stone bricks because the chests on the inside are going to be going up against this wall, so there's no real reason to have any windows poking out here. I decided to make a little temporary enchanting setup on the beach here, just to see if we could get Silk Touch on our pick to get some stone easier, or perhaps feather falling on our boots, because we are falling quite a bit. But the only real thing we managed to get here was a decent shovel, which we will use to dig sand for all of our glass. Just below our main elevator plate here, we start digging down a 3x3 tunnel to put more elevators, which will go down to our strip mine. And we dig this all the way down to Y12 with 8 blocks between every elevator pad. And as we were coming up here, we actually had another Zacian spawn, and I underestimated the power of Behemoth Blade because we accidentally killed it. After we finished killing that Zacian, we came back down and finished up our last elevator plate at Y12 and started heading back up. Back up in our storage room here, we started placing our chests for our storage. And we got them all labeled and filled up with all of our items, including stuff from our old base location. On the left wall here, we get a crafting table place and some furnaces for our little smelting setup. And on the other side, we start hammering some aluminum plates so that we can make a healer. So we don't have to travel all the way back to that Pokemon station anymore to heal our Pokemon. Here we are crafting our healer, just 4 aluminum plates in the corners, iron ingots in between, and a diamond in the middle. We can't actually pick this up now that we've placed it. Even with Silk Touch, it'll just break. We actually got lucky though, and we got a Porygon piece from crafting this, which is a slight chance anytime you craft a machine in Pixelmon, which we can use to craft the Pokemon Porygon. And here we're just reorganizing our thing on the right here, because I didn't end up liking how we had placed it. So we put the crafting table back in the middle, our regular anvil and Pokemon anvil right to the side of it, and plop our bed down on the ground so we can set our spawn. And we were about to head over to the desert to start digging some sand to make glass when we actually had the legendary Latios spawn. When we eventually did catch up to it, we tried to catch it, but he ended up killing all of our Pokemon, so we had to let this one get away. And when we made it over to the desert, we fought a Pokemon, and our starter actually ended up evolving into its 3rd stage. Started digging up some sand. Eventually we head back to our base here, and we actually make another PC, because when we fought that Latios before, we weren't actually able to pull our Zacian out and use it because we had just placed our PC down. And we actually managed to get another piece of Porygon. And we made that PC just in time because not soon after we actually had a Latios spawn, and then we had to chase him down. Unfortunately, this ended up being our lesson to look up the Pokemon type before trying to catch it, because we used a Dark type move against a Psychic and one-shot him. Back at the base here, I smelted up some of our sand into glass and started filling in the ceiling above our storage room, which will serve as the floor to our second room as well. Back down on the first floor, I start setting up a door frame, and then I start to fill in the walls with glass panes. And we're using a lot of glass in this base just so we can always be able to see around and see what Pokemon are around. Especially if a legendary or something spawns, we can kind of get an early idea of where it's at. And after throwing in some iron bars as door handles, our first floor is actually done. Before working more on our base, I had to smelt up some cobble into stone, so I used my super rod for some fishing, and we actually got some pretty good enchanted books here. Up on the second floor here, we start outlining our wall with stone bricks as a sort of frame to put our glass in. On the left side here, we actually start making a bridge of glass, which will lead to our magic room, where we will have our enchanting area and a nether portal eventually. While we were working on that, however, we actually had Zacian's counterpart, Zamazenta, spawn in the forest. And when I switched to my Dartrix here, I accidentally clicked on Pluck and damaged it a little more than I was hoping. But we got lucky and he survived, and we actually managed to catch him here. And when I checked him after, we got really lucky because he lived by 1 HP. Back at the base here, we start making the outline for our magic room, which will follow the same floor design as our other building. And up top, we start making a glass dome for the roof. In the hallway, we start filling in the walls with some glass panes. Back on the main building here, we start making a diagonal bridge which will lead to our legendary lab, where we will have our legendary board and everything legendary. While we were building here, we had another Latias spawn. We tried about every Pokeball we had to catch it, and none worked, so we just killed it for the XP. And again, while we were building, we had a Zamazenta spawn, and this time we threw a quick ball at it, and actually managed to catch it. And when I checked the IVs, it was actually a lot better than our other one. The IVs on this one ended up being about 90%, which is pretty good. Another legendary, Suicune spawn, one of my favorites. We weren't actually able to catch this one. We tried quite a few Pokeballs, but it just kept breaking free. We did try fighting this Alakazam over here, but it one-shot my Zacian in both Zamazentas, and of course every other Pokemon in my party. And once we stopped getting interrupted by legendaries, we finished up the legendary lab. And now that that room is done over there, our building is pretty much finished here. So this building here is our main utility room, got our storage and stuff down here. And we're going to have mechanical anvils and fossil stations up here. This is our magic room, where we'll have our enchanting area and eventually another portal. And then over here will be our legendary lab, where we will have our legendary board set up, cloning machines, and Zygarde reassembler. And one other thing I want to show you guys here, I'm just heading off from the base here. When we found that hidden grotto earlier, it was in a forest that was right by this swamp. And in this swamp, there is one of those boss towers. So we can turn that into a mob farm at some point to level up our Pokemon and get rare drops from the bosses up top. Here we are. And actually, right next to it, there was one of these, which last episode we thought was a birdhouse. Apparently it is a shrine to spawn the legendary Celebi. So if you right click on it with a GS ball, it'll spawn Celebi and you can fight it. And we actually lucked out because right up here is Birch Forest M, which is a rarer variant of the Birch Forest, which is where the legendary Cresselia spawns. On our way back here, I wanted to include this clip of the thunderstorm that started because it was crazy. It was just constant lightning. And we actually managed to get hit ourselves somehow. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end today's episode. It was a pretty productive day. We got our base pretty much ready to go. We got some legendaries. And we got our storage situated, which is always something I like to have. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.